Well, that is a wrap on The Boys. We just watched episode 8 of season 5 of The Boys, titled Blood and Bone. And I gotta say, I thought it was everything it needed to be. You know, we'll get to it. I don't think everything was perfect. I definitely don't think this season was the best season of the show. But I think most of the things I liked about this show were here. I think most of the arcs that they tied up in this one episode, they all worked pretty well. Honestly, it's pretty impressive how much this last episode works as a finale for so many storylines. So we're going to talk about it. Full spoilers. We're going to go over everything that happens in the show. We're going to look at which performances and plot lines really stood out. We're going to look at which ones maybe didn't work as well as you'd hope. And I'm going to ask a bunch of questions because this episode, for good and for bad, left me with some questions. Might make another video later this week about the future of this universe, because besides spin-offs, just interesting where a lot of characters end up. But for now, let's talk about the finale. First of all, if you've been watching my videos, you know I've been all over the place on this season. I think there are certain parts of the season that have really worked, and I think there are certain plot lines that just have not panned out. I am glad that most of those plot lines are gone, like they were not around for this finale. Like for instance, I think what lost most people during this season was all the Vought Rising stuff. You know, and on one hand, I think it would make sense that Amazon, a company very much concerned with money and promotion and all of the things a company loves, would say, hey, The Boys, work in a couple of references to Vought Rising, your next show, so people see it during the final season and it raises awareness. And that is the most cynical read of it, and also, like, it's a corporation, so why not? There's a world where the writers of the show were just like, we really like these characters, we should put them in here, because we need a few more soups, so let's put some bomb site stuff in, like, that's what we're having fun thinking about and writing now. Is that a great idea? Maybe not. But, you know, even if that was the case, and this was not a cynical way to promote the next series, I think that is the big mistake of this season. The second big mistake is the V1 plotline, especially looking at where this ended up. With the benefit of hindsight, we can see that that plotline went nowhere. And it did help to boost Homelander's confidence, I guess, make him feel like a god, but he could have done that on his own. He was feeling that way long before he got the V1. And in the end, the way that the boys defeated Homelander would have worked with or without the V1. Like, the V1 just didn't matter at all. If anything, it made the soup-killing virus plotline also kind of irrelevant. And I did like how the end of the finale went back to the virus, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel like that was necessary either, or that much fun. Because I'm not one of those people that thinks everything needs to be necessary and everything that's not explicitly moving the plot forward is bad, makes it a filler episode. I think we, as the internet, have talked way too much recently about filler episodes. But I do think if you go off the obvious path, which they did by introducing V1, and making that such an integral part of the season, the audience gets to go, well, is that worth it? Is that adaptational change something that makes the story better? And looking back, I'm not convinced it was. But everything else I think was great. I really, really liked, and we see a lot this episode, the culmination of the Homelander as God storyline. I wish, and I think this is another thing that I've heard a lot of people saying about this season, and I think this is true of this episode as well, I wish it felt a little bigger. On one hand, it's an expensive show. There are a lot of stars. There are a lot of superhero special effects. There are a lot of sets. Like, there's just a lot going on this show. Way more than was in, like, season 1. So I'm not surprised that the final fight between Butcher and Homelander didn't take place in, like, an arena filled with extras. We did get some extras in this episode. There were the people watching Homelander at the church. But because the idea of Homelander as a public figure and a religious figure, Homelander who cares about his image, who's always cared about his image but cares as much as he ever has now, it's a little annoying looking back at how few scenes Homelander was in with other people besides main characters. Because outside of the breakout at the concentration camp, which, when you look at it, mostly was main characters, but there were some extras there, and the scene where he kills all of the celebrities in episode 5. Like, there really weren't any scenes where Homelander was just in the world. And I understand, people say, and that's the point. Homelander was scared of going out into the world, so he kept sending everybody else to do his work for him, which is a big part of why the boys were able to evade him. He was scared of the virus, and he just doesn't like people. He's not a character who wants to be around people. That don't make sense, but at the same time, this is a character who has been around people before. It does make a lot of the scenes with Homelander that are almost always the highlights of the episode feel kind of small and isolated. I know people have been saying that, like, the season doesn't live up to the posters, which suggest these big fights, or Homelander in space watching a nuke go off. Like, that is a big action thing, but I don't think I was ever expecting that, because of the limits of the budget, and also because that's not what the show is. However, I do think I was expecting Homelander in a crowd. Homelander getting potentially rejected by the people. I think that's the one thing that this season was missing. It's clear that this wasn't going to work well for him, and he was going to kill a lot of people because almost none of them seemed to believe in him. But I think it would have been meaningful if we got to see Homelander see people think that. And yes, he sees the results of the focus group, and those are bad, and that upsets him. I'm saying he sees regular people who say he's not God. Because by the end of this show, everybody's a superhero or, superhero adjacent. But this world is full of regular people. That's what I really liked about the Starlight subplot when she went to visit her family. Like, that stuff I think is fascinating. I think we could have used more of it. Especially because the premise of The Boys has always been, how do the superheroes affect regular people? We are collateral damage. They don't see us as people. But Homelander's whole thing has been he wants love from them that he cannot get. Yeah, obviously he doesn't want to get killed by Billy Butcher, but I do think the ultimate failure for him would be to be rejected by the people. The same way that the ultimate failure for the Deep is to be rejected by Homelander, and that's why I think that plotline worked so well this week. And all I would have needed, fight still starts in the Oval Office, maybe spills out at the very end. Maybe Homelander gets hit by Kimiko's blast and gets pushed through the window onto the lawn, even though I don't think that's where that window would go, but still, whatever. And he sees a big mob of people dressed in Homelander outfits, Homelander hats, Homelander shirts. Butcher gets the crowbar, gets ready to kill Homelander. Homelander would say, "Oh, my subjects, they're here to protect me." But then instead of getting between Butcher and Homelander, they all stay back. Homelander's kind of confused. And maybe you give Hughie this line, because he is still around there. I'm a little annoyed that it wasn't a factor in this big final fight at all. But you have Hughie or someone say, "I don't think so. I think they're here to watch." And then the rest of it starts. Butcher gets to beat him up. But I just would have loved that moment for Homelander. That's my big thought coming out of the episode. Is that a one small change? Kind of. I don't know, man. It's hard not to have that thought and vocalize that thought. But hey, let's talk about the episode. Let's go through it thing by thing. So obviously, full spoilers. The Frenchie eulogy was weird. I guess it's not technically a eulogy if you're just reading a note someone left. A will reading, I guess. It was the kind of weird that I think The Boys is known for, and kind of silly. I think obviously there's bigger Frenchie moments later in the episode. But obviously this episode had to end with a funeral. And then we got what might be the other big own goal of the season, the first one being all the Vought Rising characters, is the inclusion of the Gen V kids. Now, I don't know if they knew when they were filming this that Gen V was going to be canceled, but it's canceled, which means this is the last we're going to see of any of those characters. And it means all the other characters that weren't there for that, I guess we'll never see again, unless they're the ones that are going to Mexico, or they're the ones that are getting the spinoff, although I doubt it, because why wouldn't you just call that Gen V Season 3? I just think it's a little silly for a couple of reasons. One, they're adults, right? Annie, when she started the series, was quite young. Original Starlighter. Probably wasn't much older than Marie is now. I feel like the show treats them like they're high schoolers, but they're not. They're adults. And more importantly, the second season of Gen V spent so much energy setting up the idea that Marie Moreau was some sort of Homelander-killing superweapon, which makes sense because she has the blood powers, which do seem like they could kill pretty much any maybe besides Homelander, especially now that he's immortal, although maybe she could suck the V1 out of his blood, but whatever. The Deep, Oh Father, Ashley, if she was antagonistic, those are some characters that I think you'd want Marie around for. Also, it's very helpful if you're going to sneak around to have a person who can shrink to very small size. I mean, the real Gen V characters that would have been helpful were Sam, who seems to just be another flying brick kind of Superman, but look at how useful that was during the big fight at the end when Ryan showed up. Or more importantly, Kate, who can mind control anyone she touches. And again, maybe this is one of those situations where Homelander could fight against that. Maybe he has so much belief in himself that he can't be mind controlled. But I don't know, just feels like they should try. And either way, this felt like a small way to get rid of those characters. I would feel better if the Starlight or organizations were about to do some things, right? Starlight and MM know that Homelander is planning on sending psychics to the churches so they can figure out who's disloyal so Homelander can kill them, or maybe the psychics can kill them. And in that case, maybe that's what you send the Gen V kids to disrupt. Maybe there's a big gathering of people that Annie needs them to deal with at the same time. I don't know. Again, not trying to rewrite the episode, but it just feels weird that this is where those characters are going to end up forever. It's kind of a bummer that their big final moment and just driving away in a U-Haul van. I mean, man, what if there's some sort of security system that needs blood? There's just so many ways that Marie could be helpful. And I liked her conversation with Starlight, and Starlight coming full circle, recognizing that she was the cynical hero, and she needed the more naive one to remind her what was important. Good, fine. But if that's all they're going to do, we don't need them to join the good guys at the end of Gen V Season 2. They can just be like their own squad of guys going around and disrupting what Homelander's doing. And we can hear on the news that a band of kids has been disrupting Homelander's concentration camps. Okay, I'm going to get off it. Just, again, it's quite frustrating. But okay. Good stuff. Let's talk about good stuff. I loved the Ashley and O-Father scene. Loved it. First of all, Chekhov's ball gag, fun. Obviously, Ashley had seen Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And even these two characters, it seemed like they genuinely get along, can't read each other. And maybe they can in a regular situation, but in a situation like this, where each one is scared that the other one is going to tell Homelander that they don't believe in him, neither of them can be honest with each other. That's great. Acting in this scene was great. Really like the pacing of it. Obviously, like a really big fan of Colby Minifie. I think she's been great on this show. Been very funny. And I think Daveed Diggs has been an excellent addition. I do think it's interesting that one symbol or like idea that keeps coming up this episode is the idea of collars. You know, dogs, control. And this ball gag is kind of the first instance of that. And then the next instance comes when Sage uses a story about her dog and the dog collar she used to have to manipulate Kimiko into using the blast on her. Now, I said last week, French never really sold Sage the way that I think he should have. And maybe this is just because he didn't fully know Sage the way we do, but like it was clear to me that her getting depowered is her end game. And she's one of the only characters that, like, if that happens to, they will be happy. So I'm glad she got that moment. I think Sage has been all over the place this season. I know that's on Susan Hayward. Just the idea that Sage is this super genius character who sometimes wants to watch the world burn, sometimes wants peace and quiet, but sometimes seems to have some sort of other plan or motivation, and also can't really predict things when you think they should be able to. So I think she's been all over the place this season. I think this is a good end for her. She gets to be a dummy. She gets to go do Harry Potter stuff because, of course, she'd be a Potter adult. I always love it when any character exits a show by saying, Sage out, or that's a wrap on Sage. Any version of that I do think is fun.
Sage out.
But then the team comes up with the actual plan. They learn what the plan is. And they're able to sneak into the White House because they worked in the White House before, and they know secret passageways in and out of the White House. I like that. I like when the season has brought back things from previous seasons. Not always references, but like, I'm glad the show didn't forget that these characters should be able to do this. But this moment brings up the fact, for me, that Starlight dismissed all the Gen V kids without knowing what the plan was. So like, come on. At least keep them around for that. Anyway, we get the appearance of like one of the only new characters in this episode, which is the Elon Musk type, Gunter Van Ellis, played by Ivan Sherry. I really like this idea. I wish this is something we got a little bit more time with, because we've seen it, right? Homelander killed the president because the president didn't believe in him. But I would like to see more of Homelander having to deal with these other people. And I really like that about season 4, where it's like, you know, running this company and like doing all of these things you do, it's hard. And like, there is more work, more people you have to deal with, you know, more glad handing, more compromises than you would expect. And I like that at this point, Homelander just has no patience for those people. But I don't know, I like that idea. I think that idea is interesting. And this brings me to potentially my favorite part of the episode, the Deep. I have been a big fan of Chase Crawford since this show started. I'm excited to see what he does in the future. Hopefully we get some sort of Covenant 2. But I love the way he plays the Deep. And I have loved watching the Deep this season get destroyed. Have everything taken from him. The respect of his friends, his co-workers, the sea creatures. And then in this episode, Homelander finally telling him, like, I don't like you. Because again, this is a Homelander who just doesn't care anymore. He'll throw the fake Elon Musk into the sun, and he'll just tell off the Deep because the Deep's an idiot. Perhaps not the line I think delivered the funniest, but maybe my favorite comedy line in this episode goes to Daveed Diggs for this.
Where did you learn about the Crusades?
The Bible, ever heard of it?
It's not in the Bible. Let me guess. Indiana Jones.
That was cute. I also noticed, and maybe this was because I was thinking about the chains and the collars, I never realized that the Deep's costume has a gold or bronze chain design sewn around the neck of it. I think that's funny because, again, this is a character who is completely controlled by whoever's in charge, and also it's just kind of a tacky thing to wear, so he would wear that. Also, I love how Deep comes in with,
Not your call, Prophet Muhammad.
feels like a line that the Deep has been wanting to use for a while, and he finally got to, so that's great. But then the boys get ready. Billy brings what I guess is the enemy of superheroes, the crowbar, which makes sense here because this has always been like his kind of signature weapon. But between this, Death in a Family, and then the Joker using a crowbar in one of the Injustice games, it's like they're not that good. They're handy. They're cool for killing regular guys, but it's not going to do much damage against Homelander until he gets depowered. And then we get the return of something that I had totally forgotten about, but I did have to look up. The supersonic deterrent. As the boys are sneaking around, as Homelander is making his big address, they are caught, and a sound is activated that paralyzes all of the soups. And then when the soups are out of commission, everybody shoots the regular people. And again, back to the dog's leashes thing. This is specifically called a soup dog whistle. So that's how Homelander and the bad guys control people. But I'd forgotten this thing existed. Apparently it has been in the show before. The Boys Season 2 had something like this. And then Gen V used this quite a few times. So not unheard of. And again, that means we're taking things from previous seasons, bringing them back. Love that. We get the little Ashley redemption moment, which I kind of expected would happen. It's cute. I think it was good. Definitely seemed like something that character wanted to do, and it earned that character not being killed in the finale, so good for them. Then our heroes try to get to Homelander. First they had to go through the deep, and Annie blasts him out of the room. And part of me this episode was like, oh, I hope Annie gets to like really mess up Homelander. But looking back at it, like Billy is obviously the character with the biggest personal grievance towards Homelander, whereas the Deep is a pretty good enemy for Annie because he was the one who abused her in the first episode, and he's just always been like a thorn in her side. So I'm glad those two got to fight. We had another moment, again, pulling things from previous seasons, even though this has kind of always been there, but this is way more of a thing in the past. Hughie is a technology expert because he used to work at an electronics store. So he is able to identify the fire suppression system or whatever that is, and then does a really funny little impression to distract Father.
Oi! This shot is diabolical.
I don't know. I cannot decide. I've watched it a couple of times. If that is actually Jack Quaid doing the voice, or if they dubbed it over with Carl Urban, I could see it being either way. Because, I mean, these guys spend so much time together, and he has such a specific voice. I feel like he could probably do a pretty good Carl Urban voice. And if that is actually Jack Quaid doing that impression, great. And then MM has his signature moment of being disgusted by a sex thing and uses Chekhov's ball gag to Blackagar Boltagon, oh father. Love how Hughie gets covered in blood in this episode, even though he's not really part of that much of the action. That's like a staple of a Good Boys episode. And then we get Homelander's speech where he switches completely, goes into full supervillain mode, Old Testament Homelander. And I think everybody on this show does a great job consistently with the way they've worked these characters. Like I said, I really like Chase Crawford. Yeah, Jack Quaid, been great. Aaron Moriarty, Laz Alonso, Karen Fukuhara, all doing a great job. I do kind of hope, perhaps for this performance, and maybe just for this season, and probably in a kind of you deserved it before, or like this is the making up for never really acknowledging it before, I do hope that Anthony Starr gets some sort of Emmy, some sort of recognition for this character. Because if Homelander doesn't work, the show doesn't work. And Anthony Starr took this character and turned him into everything. Right, and he obviously didn't do it alone. There was a script and people working with him. But he has been able to get so many emotions out of Homelander, turning him into such a complex villain. He is obviously the biggest departure from the comics. Like, the Homelander in the comics is an idiot, whereas this Homelander is also an idiot, but has so much more going on, and it's always fun to watch him. Whatever scene he's in, you know it's going to be great. I don't know if Amazon does, like, a for your consideration campaign for Anthony Starr, but I think they should, because I think he deserves it, even just to be nominated. I don't know. He's great. Look at how many people know who Homelander is now. Homelander has kind of become a household name, which is unreal, and is due to a lot of people's hard work, but Anthony Starr, obviously, is at the center of that. And his speech is a good example of like when he really works. When he works as like this complicated, kind of sad figure who is also terrifying and angry, confused, very insecure. He's got it all. Then we get everybody fighting at the end. Basically, it's just the two fights, Annie versus the Deep, which I love when she calls out his real name. I love when anybody does that in a moment like this to show, like, I'm serious right now. I will say about Annie. Annie, I don't want to tell you how to do your job, because you did kill him. You did a great job at that. You got so lucky that the fish hated him. I don't think she knew. I don't think anybody knew. I mean, maybe she could have seen the video and go, oh, he's scared of water or whatever. But A, flying him wherever you want, fly him somewhere besides the beach. But maybe you don't have control over that. When you're fighting him, do your best to keep him out of the water. Because like any other day, she punches him into the water. He's got a shark that's now able to jump on her and bite her head off. But luckily, everybody hates him. Love that an octopus gets to kill him because of his terrible relationship with the Tilda Swinton octopus. And yeah, we get the Butcher Boys and Kimiko versus Homelander. I think this is a creative fight. It's fun because like Homelander is very strong, but fighting 3 soups, he does have problems. You know, he can kill a regular person, and he can even kill 1 soup pretty easily, especially because he can usually take him by surprise. But in a moment like this, where the soups are able to work together, great. And I'm really happy that Ryan Cameron Corvetti got his scene earlier in the episode where he told Homelander off. But then also he has to be part of this big fight scene here. And then Frenchie comes back and teaches Kimiko how to use her powers and about emotions. And I'm honestly pretty impressed at the restraint of the writers here, because we get the line from Frenchie,
"Rage is not what makes you strong. It has never been mon cœur. It has always been yours."
And I'm very glad that the writers thought we were smart enough to put it together, because I could see another version of this where Ghost Frenchie says, "It was love that makes us strong." And it's like, no, we got it. It's good. And I think it made that moment more effective. You know, glad they managed to work Frenchie, Tomer Capone into the episode, even if it was a pretty small bit. It's nice to see all the boys are involved. And then they restrained Homelander. Kimiko blasted away his powers, also ended up blasting away Butcher and Ryan's powers, which is good because they didn't really want him. Although I was kind of expecting if Butcher lost his powers that he would just die, because wasn't that a huge part of the last couple of seasons? Was that like the compound V is kind of killing Butcher, and like Butcher's body has been ravaged by these tentacles. So if they disappear, he can't survive. But I guess that, you know, they wanted to keep him alive for the rest of this episode, so I get it. And then we get the moment that was absolutely 100% necessary. Homelander just going out like a punk. First of all, having him try to use his powers and fail, funny. Second, the idea that Homelander can't really fight because he never had to learn how to fight, great. And then third, the bargaining. Hilarious, very memorable. I can't wait to see people online tomorrow, and maybe even today, getting mad because of how the show made Homelander look weak, as if this has not always been his deal. It's just been easier for him to hide because he's able to lord his strength over people. But like A-Train said in the beginning of the season, when you take that away, he's nothing. There's one line here, obviously, that really killed me. That was when Homelander says,
"Oh, please suck your please."
Which is A, funny, B, but that line will forever be seared into my brain as a product of the movie Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood, a Wayans Brothers comedy of Spike Lee films, in which a character walking around says,
"Spare change." Sorry, bro, I'm all out, man. Man, I got these cheeseburgers, man. I don't want any cheeseburgers. Please, man. I suck your Ew.
Listen, I know that entire movie doesn't hold up, but I watched it when I was like 14, and it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And then everybody's cool, and the episode's over, and you're like, there's a little bit more time than I expected. But hey, they've probably got some stuff to wrap up. Maybe they're going to check on those Gen V kids, so that's great. And it turns out Billy wants to start a family with him, Ryan, and Terror. But Ryan rejects that. I kind of wanted Billy in that moment to like shake Ryan's hand, kind of try to hold it together and clearly be like devastated by it, but also respect that his son is doing his own thing and like is making choices and like being a man. That would have been nice, but anyway, I think that's a good end for Ryan. But then we get, and man, it has been a rough week. I'm not gonna call it anything specifically, but for pets in media. And this boys episode is no different. Also, speaking of pets, my cat Mortimer, not on my lap, roaming around on the table, still distraught and sad because his favorite character, Sheline, died, I believe, in the last episode. R.I.P. Sheline. But we learn that the Terror, Billy Butcher's dog, has died. And obviously, very sad. I found it interesting for 2 reasons. One, they've been mentioning this dog's health a lot this season, so looking back, I probably should have seen this coming. Like, Terror almost died during episode 5, the best episode, and they've also, every time someone meets Terror, saying like, oh, Terror's really old.
Does he still hump everything?
Gentleman of his age. Well, he does his best.
Isn't chocolate bad for dogs?
For a dog, the soda's f***ing lethal.
So, shouldn't be that surprising. Still sad. But then second, and the death reminded me of, and this is just because it's something that people are talking about because the trailer is out now. Well, something related to the book, The Odyssey, which is this classic idea, and spoilers for like a very minor part of the Odyssey movie. You've had plenty of time to read the book. It is literally one of the oldest stories known to man. But Odysseus has a dog, goes to fight in the Trojan War, comes back, has to go through all of these trials. It's very difficult. At home, the dog is getting older, but he's still alive. And it's not until Odysseus comes home that the dog is like, okay, I've protected the house. I've done my job. My master is home. I can die. And the dog just dies. Kind of feels like what happened here. Terror always knew that Butcher was on this quest to kill Homelander. It was his Odyssey. Then he needed to be there to emotionally support Butcher. And now that Homelander was dead, his job is done. Also, I'm just happy to see the dog this season because I had kind of forgotten about him. So good out for the dog, but that drives Butcher to wanting to kill all the Soups. And I've seen people say, like, because his dog died, it's like, well, no, because his life is kind of over. He was living to kill Homelander, protect his son, hopefully, like, recreate his family. And he killed Homelander, so that's good. And then his son wants nothing to do with him. But at least he had his dog. Oh, wait, dog's gone. All the rest of the boys are going to live their lives. So, of course, he wants to come up with another mission. And, you know, he's been making this case that Soups are bad. Vought is back in the hands of Stan Edgar. They probably will create more Soups. It's a company. They're not going to be responsible. And they'll probably accidentally create another Homelander. Especially because maybe Stan Edgar won't be in charge of the company forever. And somebody else will take it over. So, like, I understand Billy saying, like, we actually still have to kill them all. It rings a little hollow knowing that Billy is not going to die. And specifically that Ryan isn't going to die. Because those seemed like the real reasons Billy was having a hard time making the sacrifice. And now that they're off the table, you know, this is a little bit more palatable to him. So he takes the virus to Vought. Hughie realizes this for whatever reason, even though he had to go through what I guess is the living room to get to Butcher's room. And everybody seemed to be in the living room, or I'd assume at least Starlight. He doesn't tell anybody about this. He goes straight to Butcher. Doesn't call anybody on the way, even though he hits traffic. And if I had to give him a reason for not wanting to tell anybody, it's because he thought he could talk Butcher out of it. And he didn't want the rest of the team to know that Butcher had this kind of lapse of faith and judgment. But either way, I don't know. Get Starlight to take it, because she can fly. Anyway, we get the confrontation between these two. I thought this was great. Really well acted scene. Obviously, love Hughie and Jack Quaid here. But Carl Urban's version of Billy Butcher this episode, like seeing him go from finally killing this guy that he hates to being unable to make this last move, even though he thinks it's important, he thinks it's what he needs to do. Being able to see all these emotional moves on his face. It's a great job, especially for a character who is trying to remain stoic. You know, it's hard to emote, but it's extra hard to emote through another emotion. Another thing that I loved here, calls him Petite Hughie, which is something, again, from a while ago. In the books especially, Hughie is called Wee Hughie because he is small. But Jack Quaid is tall, so it doesn't really work, but still gets to throw one of those in. And then Hughie kills Butcher. I don't know what the next step is here. I don't think I need an answer from the episode, but what's the headcanon from the fans? What does Hughie do next? Because not to nitpick, not unlike my podcast, mostly nitpicking, the scene ends here, even though there is a dead body in the boardroom and a chemical weapon in the sprinkler system. Does he call Vought security and tell them about this? Because he didn't do anything wrong. If anything, he's a hero. And obviously, Stan Edgar owes him so much, and he is definitely a national treasure. So, like, I don't think he would have trouble getting away with this. But then what does he do with the virus that is in the sprinkler system? You can't get that out, I assume. Do you have to tell Stan Edgar, like, listen, Stan Edgar, there's a virus in this sprinkler system that can kill all the Soups. You guys need to get rid of it. Take it very seriously because it's your whole business. But also, get rid of it safely and don't hide it for, like, the future because you guys are, like, really schemy and you love to do stuff like this. It's like Scout's honor, Stan Edgar. Don't use this in the future to do a genocide if it's, you know, convenient for you. Yeah, just a thought I had. Maybe the virus, if it's not in a host, only lasts for so long. That's probably the explanation they would give. It gets diluted by the water, whatever. But I hope Hughie knows that. And then we get the second funeral of the episode. This one for Billy, a character who does not like funerals. Which, like, nobody likes funerals. Especially their own funeral. But, you know, whatever. Also, it brought up a question for me, which is, can you curse on a headstone? Can you just put whatever you want on there? Because obviously he did. And I'm not saying that because he did in the show, that means you can in real life. But it just made me go, like, will they say, like, you can't put that in a headstone? And then it's like, what are the rules of it? Doesn't matter, because then we say goodbye to everybody else. We get Piano Man back to Billy Joel. MM gets remarried to Monique. He's back with his family, his daughter Janine. Ryan is kind of part of his family now, which makes sense because he's definitely a better father than Billy would be. More stable, at least. I don't know why the other boys aren't at the wedding. They should probably be at the wedding. I get Kimiko needs to go to France. Wait a week. This is like your best friend. You don't know anybody else. And obviously, same goes for Hughie and Starlight. But whatever, like, I could have seen these two scenes leading directly into each other. You know, like, they're at the funeral, and then they're like, all right, let's go to the other thing. And it's the recommitment ceremony or whatever. Kimiko goes to France because that's where Frenchie would have gone. Because he told her, not just because he loves France so much. I mean, he does love France so much. Again, very impressed with the restraint of having the show not pan around to show either just regular Frenchie or ghost Frenchie, which would have been a huge mistake. I like the idea of her thinking about him, kind of seeing him across the table. And then we see Hughie gets a call from the president. The president's like, hey, Hughie, I want you to do The Boys again. And Hughie's like, I can't. I have a new thing I'm doing. And the president's like, I didn't know about that. And I'm like, President, how do you not know about that? Did nobody tell you he has an electronics shop now? Are you not keeping track of where these soups are? Even the good ones? And Hughie, on one hand, he probably just is done with the conversation. And if I were him, I'd be kind of insulted that the president doesn't know I have a new job now. And then he just hangs up without saying goodbye to the president. It's a power move, I guess. And it turns out him and Annie work at an electronics store. Don't think that's a growth industry, Hughie, but sure, it's what you know. Annie is pregnant, so that's something. And we find out that Hughie is now her guy in a chair. So he's monitoring the radios and helping find Starlight crimes in progress or accidents or whatever that she can help with. And she just gets to be a regular old superhero, which is great because that's what she always wanted, and this is what he always wanted. I think a beautiful ending for them. And that's the end of the show. We get some pictures of people working behind the scenes on the show. I like that. I like reminding people, and I think this is something that, this isn't why this is here, but I think it's helpful to remind people, especially for a finale, because these are so hard to make. They're like, people work on this, and it's the internet, so people are going to say, oh, is this the best finale ever, the worst finale ever, oh, it's worse than Game of Thrones or Stranger Things, whatever. And I think in the case of Game of Thrones or Stranger Things, there's way more clear criticisms that seem to belong to specific creatives. But I like this moment because it's like, no, this show is made by a bunch of people who are passionate about it, who are having fun, and they deserve to get a little bit of recognition. I like that. It's funny that we got that the same week as Colbert is doing his last week of shows, and he did something kind of similar on his Monday show where he just talked about his staff, and I like that. I think that's a cool thing for a big show to do, is give a little spotlight to the people that work on it. And that's the end of The Boys, the end of the whole show. The 5th season, the 8th episode, all of it done. I think overall this episode did about as good of a job tying up all of the plot lines that were important as you possibly could. We had some great performances. Sure, there were things that this season wasn't really doing great with, that it still did not do great with. Didn't find anything really interesting for the Gen V kids to do. And it didn't make the V1 plotline feel worthwhile or relevant. Like I said, might do a video later on about where we will see the boys universe, maybe even some members of this cast in the future. Some of it will be reviewing shows we know are coming out. Some of it will be speculation. Still, could be fun because they left a lot of doors open here. But the important stuff, the Deep is dead, Homelander is dead, and of course, Billy Butcher is dead, and as Hughie says,
Betty's in hell right now, flashing that smile and kicking the out of the devil.
Which reminds me, I watched a video recently by Curious Archive about the devil. It's part of their Gods and Monsters series, and it's about the mythology of the devil. What stuff comes from the Bible, and what stuff did we just make up along the way? Like in everything, all kinds of media, he's red. Why is he red? Because in some plays they decided to have him wear red, but that's not in the Bible. So it's interesting learning about how these myths develop. So if you want to watch that video, along with tons of others, and all of my videos, early and ad-free, check out this video sponsor, Nebula. Nebula is where you should be watching these. It's the creator-owned subscription streaming service that I helped to create. So basically all my videos, that's Nando V Movies videos, and the Nando Cut videos too, go on Nebula first. You can watch them without ads, you can download them to watch them offline. It is without a doubt the best way to watch my videos. And that's not all, because you got exclusive content on Nebula, like I said, like Tom Nichols videos. But that's not our only Tom. We also have Tom Scott, who's doing a series called England, where he goes to different counties in England and does an interesting thing, learns about an interesting industry. And in this week's episode, he drives a boat from his childhood that makes him so happy. It's the happiest I've seen a person in a very long time. And episodes of his series, England, go up on Nebula a week early. And Nebula is already a steal at $5 a month, or just $60 a year. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get a year of Nebula for just $30. That is $2.50 a month. It is an amazing deal. Again, go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut to check it out. So that's it. We're done with the 3 Wednesday shows of May. No more Invincible, no more Daredevil, and no more Boys. We'll talk about Spider-Man. That's coming out soon. Very excited about that. Until then, stay safe. I'll see you around.